Welcome to Debate Combats, and tonight we tackle whether political parties should push pilot programs for AI health screening worldwide within the next 6 months. The question is urgent because faster diagnosis could save lives, yet risks around bias, privacy, and public trust remain real. Our affirmative team argues that small, carefully monitored pilots can deliver benefits while exposing flaws early, and our negative team warns that the rush invites harm, waste, and inequity. For clarity, the affirmative bench is the young team, and the negative bench is the old team. We'll keep arguments crisp, evidence-grounded, and language accessible, because healthcare is for everyone. Affirmative, your floor for the opening case.
We contend that launching limited AI screening pilots now is the safest path to better care, because the sooner we test with guardrails, the sooner we learn what works.
People fear black boxes, but a pilot with transparent audits, opt-outs, and public dashboards can turn fear into informed consent.
Speed matters, since delayed diagnosis in cancers, strokes, and diabetic complications costs lives and drives up national spending.
Early triage support can free clinicians from routine pattern checks, letting them spend more time with complex cases and human conversations.
We propose narrow scopes, like radiology pre-reads or dermatology risk flags, with explicit rules that humans make final decisions.
Each site would publish error rates, fairness metrics across age, gender, and ethnicity, and corrective actions when thresholds slip.
Parties should champion these pilots because they can set timelines, budgets, and independent oversight that bureaucracies alone often stall.
A clear political mandate also unlocks cross-agency data standards, so hospitals do not waste years cleaning mismatched formats.
If a model fails, we decommission it and publish the lessons, and if it succeeds, we scale only after a second independent replication.
Patients get faster answers, clinicians get better tools, and taxpayers get transparent value tests instead of vague promises.
We are not asking for blind faith, we are asking for disciplined experimentation under sunlight.
In a world of scarce doctors and rising chronic disease, refusing to test safe pilots is the riskiest choice of all.
Thank you, affirmative, concise, and pointed. Negative team, please present your opening case.
We oppose this motion because 6 months is political theater, not scientific validation, and medicine should not bow to campaign clocks.
Pilots sound careful, yet once launched they create sunk costs, vendor lock-in, and pressure to expand before independent peer review.
Screening at scale amplifies small biases into national harm, especially where datasets underrepresent rural communities and elders.
Public dashboards will not rescue patients if false reassurance delays real tests. And a missed tumor is not a metric, it is a tragedy.
Politicians lack the expertise to set error thresholds, so vendor lobbying will write the rules, while clinicians clean the mess.
Privacy promises crack under breaches, subpoenas, and data sharing deals. And once health data leaks, dignity cannot be patched.
True diligence means independent trials, robust consent studies, and liability frameworks finalized before any patient is screened.
The humane path is funding more nurses, primary care access, and proven prevention, not flashy tools that shift blame to algorithms.
If we must evaluate AI, do it in sandboxed research environments with simulated patients, not in busy public clinics.
Medicine wins by humility and time, not by deadlines crafted to win headlines.
Strong words from the negative bench, measured and grave. We now proceed to challenges and crossfires shortly, but first, each side will lock in a single core claim for the audience to weigh.
Our core claim is that transparent, human-in-the-loop pilots are the fastest, safe route to earlier diagnoses and fairer access.
Our core claim is that politicized pilots risk patient safety, entrench vendor power, and erode trust before safeguards exist.
The positions are clear, and the stakes are human, so stay sharp as we move into the next phase of this debate. Affirmative, you have the pass, and the lane is open for a targeted strike.
Let me cut to the chase. Delaying pilots until perfection means delaying real diagnoses for real people who could be helped tomorrow.
Negative, the baton moves to you for a measured shield.
I will defend with clarity, because patient safety demands that validation precede deployment rather than trail behind it.
Negative retains the floor for a single pointed thrust.
If you put politics on the clock, you get shortcuts on the checklist, and the checklist is what keeps families safe.
Affirmative, the pass returns, and precision would serve you well.
I will defend by reminding us that pilots are not gambles, but controlled tests with human oversight, clear exit criteria, and transparent error reporting.
Negative, prepare a two-voice advance, leader, and support as specified.
Here is the lead. Once a pilot starts, it becomes a headline, and headlines harden into policy before the data matures.
Backing that claim, procurement contracts often outlive the evidence, and unfunded hospitals become tied to tools they cannot tune or terminate.
Order on the negative bench, the pass goes to the affirmative for a paired counter.
Taking point, we propose sunset clauses, independent replication, and automatic shutdown triggers that trip when bias or error thresholds are crossed.
To reinforce, public dashboards can show false positive and false negative rates by age and ethnicity, and every change to the model would be logged and announced.
Affirmative, kindly hold. The pass returns to the negative for a two-part shield.
Answering first, dashboards do not cure harm after a mislesion, so we must insist on peer-reviewed trials before any patient is triaged by a machine.
Pushing further, why should citizens bankroll pilots that vendors should finance themselves if their claims are so strong?
Affirmative, you have the floor again for a twin defense with crisp replies.
Responding directly, when the public sector co-designs pilots, it can mandate open evaluation sets and require that all findings remain public rather than locked behind corporate walls.
Pointing at a weakness, your plan to wait for perfect external trials ignores data drift and local variation that only real-world pilots in clinics can reveal in time.
Judges, we pause for mid-match insight, and we begin with the first on the panel.
At this moment, I lean affirmative for its concrete guardrails, yet I warn them that clarity on liability is thin, while the other side leans on fear more than fixes.
For now, I favor the negative because the tempo feels rushed, although their case needs more art in balancing caution with innovation, so the audience does not feel trapped by inertia.
I am currently with the affirmative for the human-in-the-loop design and community reporting, but they must promise dignity and consent, while the negative must offer better than no.
Round 2 begins, we invite fresh angles, and the pass moves to the negative bench.
New line of attack. Screening tools trained on urban hospitals translate poorly to rural clinics, so a national rollout by politics risks widening the very gaps it claims to close.
Affirmative, the floor is yours for a direct shield.
Defense is simple. Pilots can be stratified across rural and urban sites with pre-registered hypotheses, and allocation can be randomized to detect context-specific failures before scale.
Affirmative also holds a chance to drive forward with a solo strike.
One more point. Every month of delay means more clinicians drowning in paperwork, while software could catch routine patterns and free them for hard conversations that only humans can handle.
Negative. Please answer with a compact guard.
The safer answer is to hire scribes, expand nurse training, and fix interoperability standards before injecting another layer of automation into fragile workflows.
Affirmative, you now field a two-voice advance, led by a clear thesis and tight support.
Leading here, political parties should pledge pilot budgets tied to open benchmarks, so that no tool survives unless it beats standard care on speed, accuracy, and fairness.
To support, citizen panels can audit explanations and flag confusing outputs, and their feedback must directly gate model updates before any expansion.
Time. Affirmative, the pass moves to the negative for a paired press.
As lead, I argue that explanation theatre is not understanding, and a friendly sentence attached to a wrong risk score comforts no one at a funeral.
Supporting, vendors sell confidence while clinics bear consequences, so procurement rules must require full model transparency rather than glossy performance summaries.
Hold. Negative, the pass returns to the affirmative for a two-part shield, with one sharp provocation.
Answering first, full transparency including model cards, training data lineage, and versioned weight archives can be a procurement condition, and pilots are leveraged to demand it.
I challenge the opposition to name a single country that achieved clean interoperability without first building real tests that forced messy systems to finally talk.
Negative regains the floor for a two-piece defense, one crisp answer and one exposure of a weakness.
Here is the answer. We can run simulated patient studies with synthetic data at national scale and keep living humans away from algorithmic triage until the tools mature.
For the weakness, your plan relies on public dashboards and panels that many citizens cannot access or understand, which risks turning accountability into a performance for the plugged in.
Affirmative. The lane opens again, and you may answer with a compact strike.
Let me press this point. Synthetic data cannot replicate the messy edges of real life like comorbidities and missing values, so carefully monitored pilots remain the only honest way to learn.
Negative. A single shield is yours.
Shielding here, honest learning must not come at the price of patients who never consented to be training wheels for industry.
Affirmative. A solo thrust will follow.
I will add that consent can be explicit with clear opt-outs, multilingual notices, and community advocates present at enrollment, rather than buried in fine print.
Negative. One more compact guard, please.
Guard noted, but informed consent is not informed when the underlying model remains a moving target, with updates that shift behavior between clinic visits.
Affirmative. Another two-voice advance, assert and amplify.
Taking lead, we can freeze model versions for the duration of each pilot site and require reconsent before any major update, which keeps promises stable.
Adding force, external auditors can sign the hashes of approved versions, and any drift triggers an automatic halt with public notice.
Negative. You're paired counter now, lean and focused.
Lead response, freezing models locks in early flaws, and vendors will pressure to unfreeze when metrics look flattering, while clinicians shoulder the uncertainty.
To back that, halts sound safe until a clinic faces a queue of anxious patients and political offices start calling about delays and safety erodes under pressure.
Affirmative. Ready a two-part shield with a dose of heat.
First answer, service level agreements can mandate backup pathways with human review during halts so no patient is stranded in a queue.
Second move, if political officers call that, is exactly why the program needs independent governance insulated from election cycles and press releases.
Negative. Your turn for a two-part defense, one direct and one revealing.
Directly put, governance on paper is not governance when budgets shrink and headlines flare, and pilots collapse into rushed rollouts.
Revealing now, your vision quietly assumes strong broadband, modern hardware, and robust records, which many clinics lack, so pilots privilege the lucky and punish the rest.
Affirmative. Mounted two-voice attack with leader and support to address capacity and equity.
Leading again, pilot grants should fund the unglamorous work first by upgrading routers, training staff, and cleaning data, because fancy models fail without sturdy plumbing.
To support that, capacity maps can prioritize underserved regions and tie funding to mentorship networks, so that smaller clinics receive hands-on help rather than a manual and a smile.
Negative. Compose a two-voice strike that tests those promises.
Here is the lead. Mentorship cannot replace decades of systemic neglect, so the promise of quick equity through software reads like a fairy tale sold to busy ministers.
For support, every hour spent tuning a model is an hour not spent recruiting staff. And the basic math of scarcity does not bend because a dashboard looks modern.
Affirmative. Answer with two lines, one reply and one pointed question.
Reply first. Pilots can be sized to avoid stealing staff hours by automating low-value tasks like routine reconciliations while protecting clinical time.
Now the question. If we never run structured pilots, how will we gather the evidence you demand to prove what staffing patterns and safeguards actually work in the wild?
Negative. Produce a two-line defense, one crisp response, and one targeted critique.
Crisp response? We can gather that evidence with controlled studies that keep outputs advisory and never gate-care, and with ethics boards fully empowered.
Targeted critique? Your advisory promise is slippery because triage advice in busy clinics becomes de facto gating when time and stress are tight.
Affirmative. Drive a tight pair of answers and move the needle.
Answer 1. Advisory outputs can require an explicit acknowledgement and reason field from clinicians, which preserves human judgment and creates a record for learning.
Answer 2. Training sessions can rehearse stress scenarios so staff practice ignoring the tool when it conflicts with clinical intuition, and those drills become part of audit scoring.
We pivot to economics, and the negative may open with a single targeted line.
Budgets are finite, so every dollar for pilots is a dollar not spent on proven basics like vaccination drives, mobile clinics, and community health workers.
Affirmative. Compose a clean reply.
Pilots can be funded by reallocating waste in billing fraud detection and by negotiating vendor risk sharing so that public money buys results rather than promises.
Negative retains the floor for a lean strike centered on trust.
Trust breaks faster than it bends, and a single widely publicized miss by an algorithm will sour entire communities against future improvements that might have saved them.
Affirmative answers once, and clarity will serve you.
Trust grows when institutions admit limits, publish mistakes quickly, and invite citizens into oversight, and pilots give us the forum to practice that honesty.
We escalate to rights, and the negative moves first with a direct line.
The right to privacy is not a luxury but a shield, and linking health records to third-party tools increases surfaces for breach, no matter how noble the goal.
Affirmative. A single-sentence answer is yours.
Privacy by design can minimize data collection, keep processing on-site, and encrypt everything at rest and in transit with rotating keys tied to access logs reviewed by local boards.
Negative. Now target workforce impact with a focus line.
When automation handles first reads, junior clinicians lose training reps, and a generation grows up fluent in dashboards but not in diagnosis.
Affirmative. Your reply should speak to training and growth.
Pilots can lock protected practice time and require that tools serve as teaching aids that show rationales, counterexamples, and links to guidelines to strengthen skills rather than supplant them.
We now integrate international cooperation, and the negative opens one line.
Global coordination on safety standards should precede national pilots, so we avoid dozens of incompatible systems that cannot learn from each other.
Affirmative. Return with a line on pragmatism.
Standards emerge from practice, so federated pilots with shared reporting templates can seed that coordination while avoiding one-size-fits-none.
For clarity on coverage, we invite a final pair from each side. First, the negative, with leader and support.
Lead point. The motion binds us to a 6-month window that invites symbolic action and quiet shortcuts, and medicine deserves patience rather than pageantry.
Support point. Until we fix procurement incentives and malpractice rules, we're inviting clinics to absorb risk while vendors collect rents.
Affirmative. Match with leader and support, focusing on safeguards and speed.
Lead point. 6 months launches design and selection, not national rollouts, and that tempo forces disciplined scoping with staged gates, rather than sleepy open-ended committees.
Support point. Safeguards become real when tied to funding, to publication mandates, and to automatic sunset clauses that switch off hype when numbers do not hold.
We will take 3 closing checks before audience questions. First, a negative voice on culture.
Culture shifts under pressure, and once a screen becomes normal, it is almost impossible to retract, even when the evidence disappoints.
Affirmative. One last line on culture and consent.
Culture can be shaped by co-design workshops, accessible notices, and visible community stewards who help patients decide with confidence rather than with guesswork.
Before we proceed, we confirm that every required voice has been heard in this round, and we thank both benches for the disciplined cadence. Before we close the books, are there any other angles or burning points that must be heard? And we will keep this lively but respectful.
One more angle matters. Pilots can be designed to uplift rural clinics first, with grants that require training and infrastructure before any algorithm is switched on.
That promise sounds generous, yet it still drafts patients into a live experiment while procurement officers juggle politics and paperwork.
Respectfully, informed consent and clear opt-outs keep patients in charge, and the alternative is to let delays keep hurting those who already wait the longest.
Consent forms that read like tax codes do not empower anyone, and stress at the clinic desk shrinks freedom into a hurried signature.
We can fix that by using plain language, multilingual guides, and community stewards who explain choices without pressure, and that is a policy requirement we embrace.
If you need stewards to decode a tool, perhaps the tool is not as safe or simple as the brochure says, and that discrepancy should worry decision makers.
Safety is not a brochure, but a process. And pilots with independent audits are precisely how we prove or disprove claims before expansion.
Audits after deployment are bandages, and real rigor means trials that do not touch care pathways until the math is boring and the edges are known.
The edges are never fully known in medicine, which is why small, reversible pilots with human overrides are the honest middle path between hype and paralysis.
Reversibility on paper may fail under headlines and sunk costs, and once leaders pose for photos, the switch tends to get taped into the on position.
That is exactly why we demand sunset clauses, external hashes on model versions, and automatic halts tied to metrics that no press office can overrule.
Metrics can be massaged with case mix games, and a few well-chosen exclusions make a shaky system look like a miracle cure.
Then make gaming impossible by pre-registering endpoints, publishing raw counts, and letting third parties recompute results from open logs.
Open logs do not comfort the person whose lesion was missed, and that single harm weighs more than 1,000 tidy dashboards.
No one here treats harm lightly, which is why pilots focus on assistive reads, not final rulings, and why clinicians must document reasons when they override or accept outputs.
Documenting reasons is extra work for staff already running on fumes, and that friction erodes care while vendors collect clean training notes.
We budget for protected time and automate low-value clicks elsewhere, so the documentation burden becomes a teaching moment rather than a tax.
Teaching moments should not be outsourced to tools that may fail under pressure, because mentorship by humans is how good judgment grows.
Mentorship and tools are not enemies, and we want the tool to show guidelines, counterexamples, and uncertainty bands that spark the right questions.
Uncertainty bands are theater when the underlying data underrepresents elders, minorities, and the chronically ill, and the result is a polite veneer over structural bias.
That is why pilots stratify by age, ethnicity, and condition severity, and why failure in any subgroup triggers stoppage and redesign, rather than quiet averaging.
Triggers exist until a clinic faces a queue out the door, and under that, pressure thresholds blur, exceptions multiply, and norms slide.
Pressure is real, and pilots plan for it, with backup human-only pathways, surge protocols, and caps on daily AIUs so queues never dictate ethics.
Caps and surge protocols still cost money and attention that could hire nurses, modernize records, and strengthen basics with fewer unknowns.
We can walk and chew gum using pilot funds to modernize plumbing first, because without decent networks and records, no tool even turns on.
If plumbing is the priority, then commit to plumbing alone and leave the shiny add-ons for another year, which would be honest and prudent.
Plumbing without practice invites brittle systems, and the best way to test pipes is to run water under watch rather than admire dry diagrams.
Run water, yes, but do not run people through an uncertain filter that might mislabel a warning as a lullaby, because the cost of a single miss can be a life.
The cost of routine delay is lives as well, and we argue for the controlled middle, where small, supervised pilots learn fast, publish failures, and scale nothing until it earns trust.
Trust does not grow from speed, it grows from patience, humility, and a willingness to say not yet when the clock is political rather than clinical.
Our clock is clinical because backlogs and late diagnoses are not waiting for the perfect paper, and that urgency belongs to patients, not to politics.
When urgency becomes a slogan, corners bend and history is rich with rushed reforms that aged into scandals.
History also holds bold trials that saved millions once they proved themselves in careful stages, and pilots are that careful stage.
Order restored, and now the affirmative will deliver a final case with two voices, one to organize facts and one to speak to the panel.
The record shows we propose narrow, assistive pilots with human decision makers, pre-registered endpoints, subgroup fairness checks, open logs, frozen versions, sunset clauses, and automatic halts.
To the panel you ask for dignity, and we answer with consent that is plain, local oversight that is real, training that is funded, and a promise to publish failures before victories.
Negative, your final case mirrors that structure, one to sort the facts, and one to persuade the judges.
Our account shows the 6-month timeline is political. Procurement incentives tilt toward lock-in. Subgroup harms are foreseeable, and governance on paper will bend under headlines.
To the panel, we urge caution because trust is fragile, and the safest compassion is to invest first in people, in records, and in standards before machines touch triage.
Judges, please offer your decisions with praise where due, in the established order.
I vote affirmative because their safeguards were specific, layered, and testable, while the negative leaned too hard on fear without giving a path to measured evidence.
I vote negative because speed framed too much of the plan, and medicine deserves choreography that breathes rather than sprints, even if the ideas were thoughtful.
I vote affirmative because the community oversight, the funding for training, and the insistence on publishing failures felt like respect in action rather than rhetoric.
By a vote of 2-1, the winners tonight are the young team on the affirmative bench, and we congratulate them on a disciplined, humane roadmap.
We are grateful for the tough questions, and we dedicate this win to patients and clinicians who taught us that speed without safety is chaos, and safety without speed is neglect.
We will keep refining the guardrails you demanded, and we welcome partnerships that prove or disprove our claims under the clear light of public scrutiny.
We salute the winners, and we remind everyone that caution is not cowardice but care, and our door stays open for standards that truly shield the vulnerable.
We learned from this exchange, and we hope the next steps center dignity first, because technology should bend to people, not the other way around.
Our thanks to both teams for respect under heat, and deep gratitude to our judges for clarity and grace under a crowded brief. To everyone who rode with us to the end, your patience and curiosity keep these conversations alive, and we are thankful. If you found value here, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment with the argument that moved you most and the question that still keeps you thinking. If you wish to support the channel, use the QR code on the lower right or the link in the description to send a donation that fuels more debates and deeper research. You will also find links in the description to other works from a completely different series, and we think you will enjoy the change of pace. Until next time, stay curious, stay kind, and we will see you on the next episode of Debate Combats.